Hey guys, so uh, this will be my last Shatter Strike build for 0.9. This build has high ward gain and crits a lot, and it's also an ailment stacking build. So if you want to try this build, then let's get to it. For our skills, we have 5 normally. So we have 5 skills. First is Mana Strike, Flame Ward, Enchant Weapon, Shatter Strike, and Surge. For our Mana Strike, we set it up to gain maximum mana gain as possible. So I put 3 points on Arcanus Blade for the plus 9 mana, 2 points on Swift Sap, 1 point on Sprite Blade, 4 points on mana drain, and 5 points on critical mana, and 1 point on critical rejuvenation. Critical rejuvenation grants us plus 40% base crit, and what my melee critical strike chance is now is 59, so 99% chance critical to get critical mana all the time. And we put 4 points on Rage Sap since we do deplete our mana very quickly. Almost Rage Sap almost is 100% uptime. Next is Flame Ward. We get Flame Ward to grant us as high of a ward as possible. So we get 5 points on Stalwart Defense, 4 points on Concentrated Shielding, 1 point on Fortification, 3 points on Desperate Defense since we are on low health, 1 point in Astonish, 3 points on Fuel the Flames, and 1 point for Dual Ages for the +1 charge. We get this so that we get Astonished to cast Flame Ward when stunned. We will not be getting Warden Pulse because as much as possible we would want the enemy to be on the same place so that we can just spam Shatter Strike and Mana Strike. We don't have to move, so do not get Warden Pulse. And next is 2 points for Barrier. Next is our Enchant Weapon. My Enchant Weapon is level 23, but this is a visual bug. So I put 5 points on Celerity, 4 points in Concentration, 1 point on Desperation since we are always going to deplete our mana. We can fully utilize Desperation every time we use Shatter Strike. We got 4 points on Efficacy for the increased melee elemental damage, and 1 point on Kindling Blade, to automatically recast Enchant Weapon. I got 2 points on Shivering Blade to get to Frostbrand. If your Enchant Weapon is only on level 20, if you don't have any +3 or +2 Enchant Weapon, you will only have 3 points on Frostbrand. But if you get +2, you add 2 more points here, and if you got +3, you add 1 more point here on Frozen Sparks, because Frozen Sparks grants us plus melee cold damage from physical, and we are going to use dual crystal swords, which grants us 80 physical melee damage, or 80 melee damage, which gives us around 8 melee cold damage. Next we got Surge. Surge, we put 5 points on Storm Aegis, 3 points on Shielding Efflux, 5 points on Longstrider, 5 points on Effluence, 1 point on Glacial Assault, 1 point on Cold Front, which allows us to have Tidal Wave for the sure hit to grant us 150 ward, and these are all just extra. This is for the travel distance. Next is Shatter Strike. Again, visual bug. Shatter Strike is level 21. We put 2 points on 4 points on Shiver, 4 points on Cold Steel, and we are dual wielding, so this gives us 240% critical multiplier. I put 4 points on Lingering Chill to get to Breath of Cold, To get to Ice Blink, we put 5 points on Ice Blink to get our attack speed as high as possible. I put 2 points on Whiteout. We put 2 points on Whiteout because we want Shatter Strike to have more than 40 mana cost. I will explain that later, but that is the main purpose of Whiteout, and also for the recast. Next is Solidify. I put 2 points on Solidify to get 1 point on Frozen Shrapnel. Frozen Shrapnel does nothing to our DPS. It only casts Ice Spikes, but having Ice Spikes allows us to stack ailments on hit. We can stack Frostbite and other ailments that we have very fast. So one disadvantage of using Frozen Shrapnel, what I've noticed, is it lags whenever there are multiple enemies and can cause your game to run kinda slow. So if you're not interested in ailment stacking, or if your computer setup cannot handle it, you can remove these 3 and just get 3 points on Absolute Zero for the increased 45% increased damage. And yeah, that's it for the skills. Let's now go into our passive trees. For our passive skill tree, we have 29 points on Mage, the base class. I put 2 points on Elementalist, 8 points in Arcanist, 1 point on Reactive Ward, 5 points on Mage Flurry, 3 points on Warden, and 10 points in Knowledge of Destruction. We want our critical strike chance to be as high as possible for the Mana Strike and for Shatter Strike. Next is Spellblade. I put 6 points on Elemental Affinity, 8 points on Infused Weapon, 1 point in Arcane Warden, 5 points on Arcane Shielding for the less damage taken, 5 points on Essence Duel for increased melee attack speed, 5 points on Mana Reaver to gain 10 mana whenever we cast any melee attack. This goes well with both Shatter Strike and Mana Strike. For the sustain, 1 point on Gemini for the dual wielding, 8 points on Prismatic Blade, 10 points in Volca's Razor since we are casting Shatter Strike at 42 mana cost, and 8 points on Outrun and Outlast to get the cooldown recovery speed for Surge and also the ward retention. We need the ward retention since we are on high ward. Next is Sorcerer. I put 5 points in Calculated Destruction. Calculated Destruction right now is bugged, but it's already been reported, but it's still there. You put 5 points in here, you get increased critical strike chance per intelligence. This applies to your spells and to your melee attacks. That's the bug right there. If you do not want to get it, that's alright. You can just respec Calculated Destruction and put maybe 5 points on Arcane Warden to get more ward whenever you attack, or you can just get Mental Fortitude to get 5 intelligence and ward per second. Next, I put 2 points on Mana Shell to get to 8 points in Wisdom. 8 points on Wisdom grants us mana and increased mana regen, but the most important thing is it grants us access to this slot or node right here, Lost Knowledge. Lost Knowledge will be our main reason for our ward gain. Whenever you gain ward based on your maximum mana, when you use a skill that costs at least 40 mana. So ward gain per 10 max mana is 10. So basically you gain one ward per mana. I have 292 maximum mana, and I should be getting around 292 whenever I hit something. It looks about right. So yeah, as much as possible you want high attack speed, so you can spam this one and you can stack ward, and also higher ward retention, so to decrease the ward decay. And yeah, that's it for the passive skill tree. Next we have equipments. For our equipments, we will be using a 4 unique setup. For our helmet, I've got a +3 to Enchant Weapon, plus mana, elemental resistance, physical resistance, and health. Mainly what you want on your helmet is the +3 to Enchant Weapon, and if you can get a good base like Ruined Visage, which grants us 27 to 70% mana spent gain a sword. That is also increased sustainability or survivability rather for your build. Or you can get any of these three. Actually, any of these three is good, since we do want to have increased mana for our higher ward game on Lost Knowledge and Celestial Helmet if you are lacking on critical strike chance. So you can get any of these three. Next is our amulet. My amulet is a T6, increased cold damage, and I got lucky enough to have a good base with it, which is a freeze rate multiplier and cold resistance. I also got a T4 mana in there, and the suffixes is void res and armor shred on hit. For our weapons, we will be using dual crystal swords. The affixes that you would want is melee critical strike chance and increased critical strike chance. Like this one, you would want both of them to be T5 to have a maximum crit chance. And for the suffixes, you would want armor shred. Again, since we are ailment stacking, armor shred is good, grants us more damage. And yeah, I got a T6 melee attack speed, which is fine, but I would rather like critical strike chance for that, but it is what it is. Next is for our rings. So just your normal rings, 88% cold damage, critical strike chance, and resistances. I would rather have resistance than health because, again, we are ward stacking. Same is true for here. Critical strike chance, if this is cold damage, that would be much better. And critical strike avoidance and resistance. For our belt, we would need to have increased cooldown recovery speed or our enchant weapon. If you can get both cooldown recovery speed in your belt and in your unique, if possible, do try to get it. Next are for the uniques. Sorry, what about if you don't have any substitute, or if you don't have any good crystal swords yet, you can just use Shard of the Shattered Lance, which is a set weapon. I forgot who you get it. Whose boss do you get this? But if you don't have a good crystal sword, you can still use these. Just give good melee cold damage and increase melee cold damage and freeze rate multiplier. It's just not as fast as using. Well, still fast. It's just not as fast as using crystal swords, since crystal swords have implicits that have increased melee attack speed. So you can see my Shatter Strike is around 82. Hold on. With Enchant Weapon, my Shatter Strike is around 82. But with these crystal swords, yeah, it's around 109. So crystal swords are still better as long as they have good affixes. Next we have Frostbite Shackles, which gives us a chance to apply Frostbite on hit and increased frostbite duration, and also ward gain on freeze and ward retention, which is beneficial to our build. Next is Last Steps of the Living, same as Exsanguinous. We use this to get ward gain and also freeze rate multiplier at low health and increased movement speed. Now, if you have a legendary Exsanguinous with the affix increased health, you may try to remove this to swap it with Snowdrift, because Snowdrift grants us a chance to apply Frostbite and Cold Penetration with Frostbite. So if your low health build can sustain, or if your Exsanguinous can sustain your low health build, you can opt to swap it for Snowdrift. It gives us more Frostbite stacks, and Frostbite hurts more. And yeah. Next is our relic. I'm using the Bloody Nib mainly for the +1 Shatter Strike, and dexterity and mana regen and critical strike multiplier. Mana regen is negligible because we are going to be using mana strike. Critical strike multiplier is a nice addition to it. We will not be getting the first two since we are using Exsanguinous, which makes us immune to bleed at low health. We will not be inflicted with bleed. Also, we will not be getting Cold Penetration with Shatter Strike per stack of bleed on us because we do not stack bleed. Alright, so that's it for the equipments. For the idols, we would want as much mana as possible, so that's what we're getting. So I have this. Prefix and suffix for my grand idol are mana. If you can get both of them, that's the ideal one. I don't have... If you cannot get the grand idol for both of them, you just get the percentage increased, 5% increased mana. For our ornate idols, the ideal one would be this one. Increase melee elemental damage for suff or prefix, and 8% increased mana for our suffix. If you do not have these, you can use this one as substitute. Ward generated per second for the suffix. And yeah, for the character sheet, as you can see, I have very low mana regen and health regen, very good movement speed. For my resistances, I don't have them all capped, and that's perfectly fine as long as the enemy doesn't move around too much. I can definitely stack ward, but if you can try to cap out all these resistances, that would be the most ideal. It greatly increases your survivability, so try to get that. And now for our melee attack speed is 105 with Enchant Weapon on. I'm getting chilled, so it reduces that every once in a while, but it doesn't matter. It's 105, but with our Shatter Strike, grants us 75% more attack speed, and also with the recast. So yeah, that's pretty fast for me. Next is critical strike chance. For our melee critical strike chance, we have 59%. This is already comfortable for me since we are hitting very fast and quite a lot. So even at 50%, I think it's okay. But again, the higher the better. If you can get this at 100%, then go for it. Critical strike multiplier is at 250, but we have Old Steel, which grants us 240 more. That's around 500% critical strike multiplier. And yeah, and 40% cold damage. If you can get that around much higher, do it. Defenses, we don't need endurance. Critical strike avoidance is at 85. And freeze rate multiplier is around 600. Frostbite chance is 115, and cooldown recovery speed is at 28%. So that's it for this build. Oh wait, not yet. Blessings. The most ideal blessings is this one from the Age of Winter. If you can get chance to shred cold resistance on hit, it will greatly increase your damage against enemies, against bosses rather. Max out at 10 stacks, so try to get that from the Age of Winter. The other ones you can just get resistances. I got fire and necrotic resistances from the other ones. You can get lightning resistance for this one. Those are the ideal ones. And if you are having a hard time farming for crystal swords, try to get this one from Blood, Frost, and Death. It gives you 70% increased one-handed sword drop rate. This will make your life easier for farming for crystal swords. So yeah, that's it for this build, guys. So if you have any questions, just leave it in the comment down below. If you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. And after this, I'll just be stitching out the gameplay for this build. And yeah, thanks for watching. See you later.
I cannot do it. I cannot.